I love Tupelo Smiles.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
Severe thunderstorm watch issued for a large portion of the area. You're watching Mississippi Live at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. That watch in effect for the counties in green you see next to me. Watches occur before warnings typically, but today, unfortunately, we've had it occur in opposite order. One of the many things, of course, that we have been looking at with all of our folks here. We have team coverage this evening out there. Our Gabe Maynard directly to my left on the screen there is looking at some of the damage, both flooding related and wind related out there in Pontotoc County, one of the hardest hit locations. Our Emily Leonard has been checking what you guys have been bringing in, whether it's videos, reports from emergency managers, or at least trying to get in contact, get more of that information. We're going to start off with our Caleb Edelblut, which is showing some of the most significant damage that we have seen today. Damage that unfortunately is to one of the biggest employers there in Pontotoc County, there in Ashley Furniture, where the roof was partially ripped off earlier this afternoon. Caleb?
Yes, this is exactly what we're showing here. Probably the most significant damage that has been reported and sent in through the Mississippi Live Weather app. I mean, you can't make this up. We can see it very clearly. That roof just continuing to just not having a good day with it being kind of ripped away with some of that wind. So dealing with that at the warehouse down in Ecru. I mean, you can see, I mean, it's not just a small hole. I mean, almost a third of the roof down here along the wall kind of just absent as that wind made its way through. And even outside of the warehouse area next to the sign, talk about 2 trees that have fallen. You can see the roots have come out of the ground as well. And it's not just one big tree. That's kind of what I saw at first. There are 2 separate ones within that area that have fallen. And then another area of location that we were just talking about with damage down here off of, I believe it was Friendship Road, but Gabe was just there discussing the damage with some of these straight line winds and how it's been impacting us here in North Mississippi.
Unfortunately, those reports have been significant when they have happened in some cases. I mean, now that's not the most well-built structure. That's why we always tell folks to get to a well-built structure. But there in Pontotoc County, unfortunately, a sign of what some of that damage can look like. No warnings as far as severe weather left for Pontotoc County, though we do have a flash flood warning remains in effect until 10 p.m. That's longer than maybe these typically are issued, and that's because rainfall amounts have been more significant than when these are typically issued. That's a 3-hour amount. Let's go back over to the 6-hour amount, because now we're just slightly past 3 hours ago when we started getting some of the more significant reports. Between 6.5 and 7 inches of rain falling there in some sections of Pontotoc County. Our Emily Leonard has been kind of aggregating some of the reports that we have been getting there out of Pontotoc County and all across the area this evening, many of which you have shared with us.
That's right, Matt. A lot of videos coming in and obviously a lot of photos coming in of not just what's happened now, but of the rain and the hail when it was happening. This is some video out in the Possum Trot area, or South Pontotoc County area. This is Krista Bagley's video of them there on the porch. Thankfully, it was a covered porch, watching the hail, watching the rain come down, and it was coming down in buckets. But if you listen closely, you can hear that hail. Looks to be about pea-sized hail or so, maybe about as big as a dime, coming down. Again, this is in South Pontotoc. Now, this next video, because of the winds and because of the damage, or the winds and the rain, damage hitting a lot of the areas as well. Caleb showed you the picture of Ashley. Christy sending us this from Possum Trot, a tree busting through her son's door, just shattering that front door. Unfortunately, a lot of trays down because of the wind, and unfortunately, thankfully they're okay, but unfortunately their door not so much. But a lot of tree damage out there. Those are the reports that I'm getting. Some power outages as well. If you do have damage, you can download our app, scan those QR codes there on either side of your screen, depending if you have an Apple or an Android phone, and you can send us your pictures. I'd appreciate it if you just put where you were. That really helps us understand the location as well as get the report to the next service. I have not heard back from the EMA director there in Pontotoc County, but I did reach out to dispatch for the county, and they told us they haven't heard of any injuries and reports right now, just some wind damage.
Okay, and hopefully they don't get any reports of injuries, the wind damage, and obviously hail has been most significant. Should also mention on those QR codes there when you're sending in stuff, a largest hail report coming in gets a $100 gift card from our friends there at True Shield Roofing, and we've had some that will probably qualify in excess of 1 to 1.5 inches in size. So there will be a winner tonight from those, and so you have to send it in using the app. You need to send it next to a coin to be able to get that. We appreciate all the folks who have done that so far this evening. And Emily, we'll again talk to you about some of the news headlines of the day coming up here in a couple minutes. But first, I want to check in with our Gabe Maynor, who's driving down the road there in Pontotoc County. The signal's been in and out, as any person who lives in North Mississippi knows. Sometimes it goes when you're driving here across some sections of the area. Where are you at, Gabe, as of 6:05?
Well, Matt, this is an area familiar with where we were at the top of our live stream. You can see this is it was completely fall County Road 244 connecting with Friendship Road, and what we're seeing right now is a yard. The fact we're seeing the yard means that water has receded and things are getting better. I do see some guys that are working on clearing some of the trees. I'm going to work to get over there and talk with them here in just a moment. So if you want to come back to me here in like 2-3 minutes, I'll be able to get you with what they're doing. But either way, recovery efforts are ongoing. Folks in Pontotoc taking advantage of that dry weather while it's here.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll check back in with you in a minute. I think this is closer to what it looked like a few minutes ago there in Pontotoc County of some of the flooded rainfall that pictures have come in there. Caleb, right?
Yes, this was sent in by the Friendship community out there in Ecru. So pretty much Pontotoc County just continuing to get all that rainfall. And this is kind of what it looked like earlier. But as we can see here on the picture, hopefully that water will start to recede, especially because we're not seeing any rain continue to fall. The sun looks like it's starting to peek through the clouds. So hopefully we're starting to enjoy some drier skies and take advantage of it within the next few minutes. And on the flip side, speaking of clouds, I mean, those are more of the reports that we're getting in. So I like to see the transition, kind of talk about some mammatus clouds and what those look like up there in the sky, seeing less and less hail pictures, more SLCs or scary looking clouds. I think that's a nice change of pace heading into the evening ahead.
Yeah, exactly. SLC, scary, when we're referring to that, typically doesn't mean it actually is scary. It's scary looking is different than actual scary. And so we'll look at some of those pictures a little later on, again, sent in using the app, and we'll go through some of the biggest hail pictures coming up a little later on in this broadcast as well. To bring it back in to Mama Justice Doppler radar, we still do have, again, some severe thunderstorm warnings. Most of these are not as intense as when we had some of the storms earlier. In fact, going specifically to peak threats, only a few spots here where we have some even second level of purple coming up, and we've had to be kind of into that third level of purple before we start talking about hail that's been significant, and all the way at the top there when it's been more ping pong ball size. Just the way the atmosphere is structured today, that's typically been the case. It's using our True Shield hail swath, and the other way we use this is when this gets up into the dark purple. That's when we know we're likely with hail. I don't really show any dark purple out there on any of this, at least nothing that's been recent. The hail that we do have, some of those returns there around Houston were almost an hour old at this point here. So those are not as impressive. So strongest storms, again, most of these storms are a lot weaker than they were just a little bit ago, but still showing where kind of some of the strongest are back here. Carrollton and near the Winona area. Our camera in Winona is down, or else I'd give you a better shot of this. We'll look 3D on this batch of thunderstorms here. And that one, again, just west of 55, one of our tallest, but not as tall as the ping pong ball. The ones producing ping pong balls earlier, a little bit taller than this one, and that makes a difference. There isn't a ton of movement on these storms. That's part of the reason they just kind of pop up and drop what they drop, where they drop what they drop. Drop what they drop, where they drop what they drop. I think I got it right. Either way, pop up, do it, done. That's the way these have largely been. But we're starting to see, again, more development out here into northern Carroll County with these thunderstorms here. Again, severe thunderstorm warning issued for locations there in northern Carroll County until 6:30, and then kind of northwest Carroll County back toward Greenwood there in LaFleur County until 6:45. We do expect these to continue to expand back westward. Let's check our camera out there in Greenwood. Maybe we can get a shot along the edge of those. See a moment here for that to populate in. And again, just kind of looking back You can see the cords there on the tower are sort of bobbing around quite a bit there. Get this camera here and pan it just a little bit for us. I'm sorry, I pulled up Greenville. My bad. I saw green and just went with it. Okay. Here we are. Here's our Greenwood camera. Again, kind of looking back toward the northeast. As we sort of pan it a little bit back to the east, you're looking now back into those storms that are developing, kind of back in your direction. You'd see a little bit of vertical development on that batch there, but I don't have a huge one in the foreground here. So we expect to possibly continue to build back toward you. Again, Greenville technically under the severe thunderstorm warning at this point, though we don't officially have, I would say, a storm even over top of you yet. That's largely precautionary on the part of the folks there at the National Weather Service and how they are monitoring this as well. See a message from Gabe, who barely has any sort of power. Let's talk on the phone, Gabe, for a moment here. Call Gabe Maynor, and we'll get his kind of report on where he is at. Again, we're partially on damage assessment duty right now. Okay, so I know you don't have a lot, probably enough for a live shot here. What percent are you at?
1. It died as soon as I hung up.
Okay, so tell me where you're at, what you're seeing, and then if you can.
Yeah, so recovery efforts are still ongoing. They're working to clear the trees, the water receding, so things are getting better here in Pontotoc. I was able to hopefully get a soundbite with Ms. Charlotte here in just a bit, getting that sent over as we speak. And yeah, just continue to navigate along Friendship Road, but things are looking better. There's just limbs, leaves, and even some trees down that is going to take a little bit of time to clear on up.
Okay, appreciate that, Gabe. Charge it up. Good luck. Talk to you in a bit.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Okay, our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, again, kind of assessing the damage situation there in Pontotoc County as those reports continue to come in. We're going to take a brief break here, and we'll have a little bit of a news update, and then we'll get you the rest of the stuff related to what storms are doing, how they're doing it, and where we go into this upcoming weekend as Mississippi Live continues here in 60 seconds.
I started banking in 2012, went to First Choice Bank. They gave me my first loan, super easy to deal with. I like First Choice Bank. I've never wanted to go anywhere else. I'm a customer for life.
Growing up in a farming community, I've always been fascinated with the weather. But in 2024, my draw to be a mother became stronger.
So I took a step back from my job until Matt gave me a call. Mississippi Live allows me to be fully present at home while also getting to do my dream job as a broadcast meteorologist.
Wake up with me every weekday morning on Mississippi Live.
This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
So I thought I would start off with a very appropriate story for today with all of the power outages that we are having and that we have seen over the last few days. And I mean, and who could forget January's ice storm? Well, now one city is looking for a new way for people to be able to report those power outages. New Albany Light, Gas, and Water has a new way to report outages. Now, this is a map of their coverage area. So this applies to the people who live in this box, if you will. They're looking at what's called a hometown grid. It is a web-based AI-powered system that replaces the old busy signal problem. What you do is you call in and an automated system answers immediately. You tell it your address, give it a quick description, and then the crews will get those details instantly. No waiting on dispatch. You will also get a text confirming your report, and you can track those outages on a live map. This service costs $2,500 up front, plus it's got a $1,500 a month fee. And they say that the existing dispatchers are not going anywhere. They're not losing their jobs because we still need them. Customers can call the same number they've always called, 662-534 1041. You can also try to call that new line. That's the 888 number that you see there on your screen. You can also report by voice or by text. Thought that was a really cool story, especially on a day like today. $1.3 billion. That is the price tag on 170 construction projects currently underway at Ole Miss. Chancellor Glenn Boyce says the work will shape the university for decades, calling it advancing our mission. Big ones to know: a new student housing at Kincannon and West Row, and a new school of accountancy building set for the spring of 2029. A few renderings here. A new parking structure and data center upgrade, both expected to finish early next year. Beyond the campus, though, several fraternities and sorority houses are also under construction or renovation, including some new houses for Alpha Chi Omega and Sigma Alpha Epsilon. So as the heat continues, the Tupelo Salvation Army needs your help. Their cooling and their hydration stations are open, but they are running low on water, so they need bottled water. If you would like to donate, you can drop it off at the Salvation Army on Carnation Street in Tupelo. Also, their cooling station is open Monday through Friday, 10 to 1, and then again at 1 to 3. Sorry, 10 to 1 and 3 to 5. There we go. The hydration station is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. All right, that is a look at your news on this very rainy and stormy Thursday. For Mississippi Live, I'm Emily Leonard.
Okay, as we're kind of moving on to the next part of the broadcast here. Oop, hold on. I'm guessing, Gabe, that you're the one getting my reverb there. So, Gabe, let's hear your report.
Yeah, Matt. So talking with Webster County EMA, Tom Booth, he's telling me that trees are down. They got marble-sized hail for a brief moment and some flash flooding concern as well. Your typical reports that you're getting with this setup, and unfortunately that continues to be the case for a lot of locations, not just here in Pontotoc, all the way down in Webster County and in plenty of locations across North Mississippi. So we're continuing to get that information. I know that there's a little bit more detailed report that you may be able to pull up here behind the scenes. I can't have my text up as well as my shot up. So if you have that as well, if you want to add any details that I may have missed. But there are cleanup efforts out here. I am going to work to get some shots and some interviews with them. But my phone, as I was letting you guys know behind the scenes, it is struggling a little bit because there's a lot going on and a lot of service issues. So it's just eating up some of that battery. So say a prayer for the phone as well as we try to get you all of that information.
Okay. I appreciate that. Hey, listen, anybody who's lived in North Mississippi and driven down a road understands what you're going through, so you're good.
Exactly, but glad everyone's doing better. That's the thing. That's the most important thing from this shot, is that recovery efforts are ongoing. Everyone that I have talked to is okay. No injuries or deaths to report, which is what we want whenever there is a severe weather setup.
Absolutely. Appreciate our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, there plugging it in, trying to charge things up. Appreciate that. Hey, we mentioned hail. We've talked a lot about wind. We've got a ton of hail reports that have come in. We'll show some of those newest and that have come in recently. Caleb's looking at those again in our downtown Tupelo facility.
Yes, no, I kind of structured it to where we could start off small, at least my personal opinion, very brief, that I was able to try to organize it. If you're trying to look for the hail and having trouble to spot it, well, that's a good sign, because it's really hard to see here on this, as we're talking about more of that pea-sized hail just under that dime, not even a corner. So smaller hail out there in Holcomb, Mississippi. But I mean, we've seen all different shapes and sizes as this hail has continued to fall all throughout our region here. Less than a dime, but starting to build on up, kind of more of a handful, as people have found more and more out in their yard. You can even see some out there in the grass just and on their deck just outside of their house. But working our way up towards quarter-sized hail, especially further up north out in Pontotoc. Really kind of seeing just the different hail shapes and sizes continue to grow all throughout North Mississippi. And these are the two, in my opinion, that I think are the biggest. Unfortunately, we don't have a coin next to them, but just based off their shape and size, I mean, easily reaching over an inch. I mean, you can see how big this, I want to make sure to give the location for that one. That was out in Possum Trot Road, where we've received a lot of damage so far. So there was another big hailstone. And this one, I just think, is at least the biggest or thickest, with just how big the diameter continues to be with that hailstone. This one was sent in earlier today. This was off of Friend Road, Ecru, Mississippi, around 4:36. So I'd say this was probably one of our largest hailstones that we've seen today. Unfortunately, like I keep mentioning to Matt, it's impressive in the bad way, which is kind of how big we could see some of those hailstones, and some of those continue to get reported. But the good news is they're slowing down. We're starting to decrease in size throughout the next little bit. So hoping that continues to be the trend heading into the rest of our evening hours ahead. And then that will hopefully help kind of limit more damage reports, outages, and we can continue to kind of look in the past for that peak intensity that we've been covering.
Yeah, absolutely. Past would be best on that, right? Our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut reporting. Okay, let's kind of roll back into weather coverage here.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist live.
And here near the Alva area, where our probably most intense storm is showing up as of now, 6:20 here. This is part of a severe thunderstorm warning still at this time until 6:30 for Webster County. A little black sort of return means really heavy precipitation of some kind, whether it's really heavy hail or wind or exactly what, just kind of depends. But a thin wind going along with the heavy rainfall when those end up going through that bit of a collapsing phase there. You know, we have to look through in order to kind of show this, but let's go ahead and get a motion on this over the course of the last hour. And you see how this has been one of those spots where we've had, again, repeated storms developing. And so that's where the flooding rainfall potential kind of comes into this as well. It's not an everybody thing, but the rainfall over the last 6 hours there, southeast of Alva, again, closer to where we had those two reports. You know, Gabe was mentioning the reports of trees down around Eupora. That's the shot here. 3 o'clock hour, it shows when that came in, and then the down power line there along US 82, closer to around 440 there. That would be close to the Choctaw County area. That says close to 82, so I'm wondering that's got to be too far south on where they put that on the map there at the Weather Service. Either way, the heavy rainfall as these storms collapse, a big part of how it did that and what it did and what these storms have produced. We continue to have very heavy rainfall rates out of some of the most significant of these. Let me see if they'll give me the storm total, because that's the thing. There are spots, Chickasaw County now, we're up there in excess of 2.5 to 3 inches, Webster County, and then obviously right at our bullseye of 7-ish inches of rainfall up there, where we still have that flash flood warning ongoing into Pontotoc County. Let's be clear on an overview here for a moment. As far as damaging storms, these are not as significant as where they were a couple of hours ago. There are obviously still some reports of wind damage possible out of these, a decent number of lightning strikes, still about 885. And the majority of these that are heaviest, again, southwestern Chickasaw back toward Carroll County. And over the last hour, you could see maybe expanding a little bit farther, or was at least for a little bit trying to expand slightly farther west. But this general grouping, again, storms going to kind of continue to work their way from the northwest back toward the southeast. But there's just not a ton of movement on the whole cluster there. I mean, if I almost feel derelict of duty on this. And behind the scenes, Emily's laughing at the word duty, which is her favorite word. But if you look here at the positioning on where those are over this 1 hour time period, they've all basically stayed over the last hour encapsulated in this circle here. You have some right at the edge, and then just kind of redevelop there. That's why the heavy rainfall is a big factor. That's why we cannot really do good storm tracks on them, because they're not really to kind of do everything that goes alongside of that there. Looking toward, we aren't going to have a repeat performance. I don't think we're going to have a repeat performance on this. Our high school game of the week, again, presented once again this year by the folks up at Langston Lott and Casey Lott. Glad to be partnering with them once again. Going to be there for, again, for the cheer, and I think the most valuable non-player once again this year. No band weekend starting. Temperature each of these, it will be dangerously hot once again for high temperatures tomorrow. So looking towards Saturday, 96 the high. mean, a couple storms not impossible, but I think drier air remains the bigger story this weekend. And so that gets temperatures dropping a little bit more by Sunday behind a weak front that's trying to kind of nose into the area from up to the north. So let's look more at this here on our futurecast and kind of how this will play out. Again, tonight, those storms that we have out there, fairly close, kind of overdoing the ones up north here. Before we go any further, let's go back over to radar for a moment just to kind of verify that. So we have what we have here. And up into Tennessee, there are some, overall, a fairly underwhelming quantity of storms up there. So I would say that this is close-ish on its positioning and where storms are, overdoing the ones up into Tennessee somewhat. So let's see how that plays in to the overall way in which this works. Still kind of tries to keep regenerating. A few thunderstorms, 8 o'clock, and we do still have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a lot of locations. Again, if you're in that and not, you can find that using the Mississippi Live app on your smartphone. It'll, there's pop-up right there. I'll let you know if you're in those alerts. A lot of us are, for the next few hours here, under one of those severe thunderstorm watches. Looking here past around 9:30, 10 o'clock this evening, still kind of regenerating a few, but I think possibly overdone a little bit here on Futurecast. That's why I'm on the wide shot rather than get too specific in on exact spots. I think it's overdone a little bit. What I'm more interested in and more concerned about, as far as overnight's concerned, these thunderstorms back here in northwest Mississippi and whether or not these can kind of hold on here. I think those continue to try to expand in from the north and west and could potentially have some wind gusts there up around, not impossible to get a few of those up to around 50 miles per hour or so. But that does pretty consistently still have some that are around overnight through 5, maybe even 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. To track those, we have the app, of course. Our Maggie McCallie will be up bright and early, 6:30 a.m. when she typically comes on the air. At the latest, that's when you'll see her. Might be a lot earlier than that, depending on how timing works on this. Check her out again on Mississippi Live this morning, 6:37, 7:30 a.m. or earlier as necessary. Keep it here again for the latest. As we come back on here to Futurecast, you'll notice going through your day on your Friday, starting off with low temperatures somewhere in the middle 70s to low 70s. That's closer to what we typically expect for this time of year, but even with the rain-cooled air, still running a little bit above our normal. Our IMPC school bus forecast has a 75 degrees for that pickup temperature. We're 95 at drop-off as we head toward afternoon. It will continue to be obviously a hot day for tomorrow all day long. That's the storyline there under what should be, again, partly cloudy skies initially, perhaps a couple isolated showers and storms there continuing to try to pop up in and around the area, but not as many of those into the morning. And the real question is how many can generate as we head into the afternoon? We're not showing a ton there. I'm going to redo this looking at our strike model, which tends to be a little bit more aggressive. And so we will use that, looking at its kind of latest run here. It does still also have, again, some of those early storms. So it's interesting to see both of our main projections kind of agreeing on a couple of those around. Now, it keeps them around a little longer, perhaps simply because it does not show as many overnight storms leading into early tomorrow. Head toward midday, though, that round kind of slides out of here. This weak front coming in from the north could initiate maybe a couple storms, but the majority of those, see how we wait here? You can almost see that little outflow boundary there. That's kind of like today that sort of gets the few going and they kind of expand from there as we head toward around, say, 536, though a lesser quantity. So knock on wood, fingers crossed, all the things you have to do, that hopefully those aren't as significant or severe. High temperatures tomorrow, lower 90s to maybe around the 100-degree point, certainly up in the northern part of the state, closer to that front. Those temperatures will be a little bit cooler, and the heat indices, I mean, anytime we're 97, I'm not saying it's cool, but anytime there's a 9 in front this time of year, that's a huge improvement compared to the 110-ish that we have Greenville back toward Kosciuszko, Macon, or so. And obviously, where you don't see the rain-cooled air, that will be more significant. Our wet bulb globe temperature, which looks at heat injury risk, more limited by tomorrow evening than we have been for this afternoon. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, we got to keep things good for all of our athletes out there, and hopefully everything turns out well for them. Certainly Futurecast into tomorrow evening. keeps it relatively dry. Let's start your weekend forecast here, because I know, again, we did not get too deep into the weekend forecast at 5 o'clock. You can see limited rain chances with more significant ones back to the west of us for early Saturday morning. Again, we don't drop the 0 on the rain chance on Saturday, but drier air behind this front hopefully makes a difference by Sunday. And so that's kind of the trend downward, I think, both days on the rain chances there. Upper 60s, low 70s. That is back below normal for low temperatures by early Saturday morning. Saturday by midday, again, we'll probably have a couple of isolated showers and storms, but this front is the story and the drier air behind it as well, kind of a secondary front up to the north of us, continuing to try to kind of reinforce it. In saying that, notice as we switch it over here between our HRRR to our strike, it still has a couple of isolated showers picking up there, trying to go off of that initial front up into Tennessee more likely. Not a lot of this meaningful moisture in our area, but if something can stay a little more organized, going to sprinkle, not an impossibility to maybe an isolated storm out there by a Saturday afternoon. So even behind the front, it is less humid, but not necessarily a lot less hot. Look at temperatures, upper 90s. Look at the contrast here, right? You're only adding, what, a degree or so there for Bruce and Houston. Oh, man, I jumped back too far. Let me see if, there we are. Hit the wrong button. Okay, so Saturday here, look, we're upper 90s to near 100. You're adding maybe only a degree to some of those temperatures for what it actually is to what it feels like. That's the real impact from the front. Less humid air, not necessarily cooler air. It'll feel cooler, even if temperatures aren't actually a lot cooler. By Saturday night, again, mainly dry, a couple rogue showers possible, possibly into early Sunday morning here on our strike model, trying to keep a couple around, possibly closer to dawn there. Again, rain chance doesn't drop completely to 0 with this, kind of hiding there behind the scenes, a limited chance. And we'll talk slightly more about that coming up here in a couple minutes. We'll look a little more closely at that. 7-day forecast has us going low 90s into the first of next week. Rain chances up maybe just a little bit more as we head toward the middle of the week. Where that time of year, if you have enough heating, you have something to spark it off like today, you're going to have some isolated, stronger storms. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back looking at some of your comments that you guys are sending into us to let us know what you are seeing, as unfortunately power outages continue to be an issue. We'll check in on those power outages with our meteorologist, Caleb Edelblut, as we go look at a few locations as Mississippi Live continues here in 60 seconds.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
For years, it's been the same formula. If it bleeds, it leads. You deserve better. We are Mississippi Live. We're focused on the stories that matter to you, to your community, to your family, because local matters. We are Mississippi Live.
Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted.
Outside Mabin, we're looking again at that mix of clouds and storms back west of Mabin that still have prompted a severe thunderstorm warning. The most recent one still in effect until 7:45 p.m. Current time is right at 6:30 p.m. You're watching Mississippi Live here at 6. That storm one that just is an environment, it continues to regenerate and stick around, unfortunately, long periods of time. I got to bring up our chat because I do absolutely feel for Christy here. Her comment, you know, it's one of those that kind of tugs at your heart. She says, hey, I'm praying for any of these folks going through what we did earlier for 3 hours. It was like it was never going to end. In 44 years, I have never been in a storm that lasted so long and was so intense. It held for 2 hours of it. I mean, we've said Possum Trop on TV and here before a number of times. I might have said it combined on this broadcast as much as I have over the last 6 or 7 years. That storm just did not move and was so intense with what it was producing. The camera that gave us an excellent viewpoint of it was actually our North Mississippi Storm Chasers camera up there in New Albany. Now, this is just kind of the leftover, again, what we call convective debris from what the thunderstorms were. But for a while, we saw storm after storm after storm after storm just kind of lined up and then dropping it over the same spot over and over. That doesn't happen often. I sometimes call that a spark point, where you just have the right intersection of boundaries. It's lifting, you have enough moisture, it's producing, and just kind of regenerates thunderstorms for a long period of time. So certainly feeling for folks that had the big hail, that had the rainfall there. And you're absolutely right there. Brenda, one of our super fans there, praying for Christy, God, we just pray that, that certainly God is with those that are continuing to recover. It's going to take a little time for some folks to do that, insurance and those sorts of things. But certainly there's that anxiety that goes along with it. And I certainly get that. It's part of the reason why I became a meteorologist, was storm anxiety. It's kind of hard when you just have that nonstop situation like what she experienced there. But as Jennifer mentions, hot, certainly the case for a lot of spots, and still power out in some spots like Manti. And that's where our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut has been kind of tracking some of those power outage reports that people have been seeing, the different power cooperatives there. Caleb, what do you have?
Well, a little bit of good and bad news. I know Pontotoc has been a focal point for storms today. That was one of the counties that has been hit the hardest. Now, we continue to see those numbers decline. We're down to 236 customers out there in Pontotoc. But on the flip side, Chickasaw County, they continue to skyrocket with outages being reported. They're up to around 730, so almost 8% of the county, but still significant. Now, if we take a look at our Pontotoc Electric Power Association, we're not seeing as much color. So that continues to look fantastic. On the flip side, if we were to look out here in Chickasaw, we are starting to see these outages start to spread. Some more and more color starting to appear here on the map. The biggest one here, 484 outages reported within that kind of pink purple shaded area. Up here in the red, we can see around 236. Of course, then we have our isolated outages throughout Calhoun, getting closer towards Webster, even towards portions of Clay. But another thing that I wanted to point out was Winston County. We're starting to see some outages get reported. There was a major outage, and now it looks like they are back online. So that is very good to see. There were up to triple digits of over 100 people out here in the northeastern portion of Winston County out of power. But it looks like between me pulling it up maybe 3 minutes ago and now that they're already back online. So very excited to see that power is being restored. Their EPAs out there do a fantastic job getting back out as soon as they can to restore power for you guys. So we appreciate all of y'all for submitting reports of those outages, especially towards your respective websites and EPAs across all the counties here. But we are starting to see kind of some counties start to do a little bit better and other counties starting to catch up on those power outages.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time. It's one thing. Mother Nature can go bam, 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 and it takes sometimes you're able to connect the right thing at the right spot and get a whole bunch of people on. I think that's where, again, the PTSD from the ice storm, people being out for weeks, large numbers don't necessarily mean large amounts of time. In fact, large numbers sometimes are a good sign, because that means there's one big thing that needs to be fixed, and you concentrate all your effort on that. Maybe not a good thing, but certainly better than a lot of small numbers.
Yes.
That's when you're typically sitting in the dark longer.
Yeah, exactly. And an easier fix almost to help get you guys back online quicker.
Absolutely. Our Caleb Edelblut there reporting for us. Appreciate that, Caleb. Current time is 6:37. And again, this cluster of thunderstorms, one that we're watching out here, stretching on Mama Justice Doppler radar all the way there from south of Calhoun City back there toward Eupora and Winona. Just looking at the wind mode here, again, spotty wind damage potential. The main storm that these thunderstorms are continuing to kind of produce here, but it doesn't really show up on the wind mode there as well, which is a good sign, because that means we don't have something that's guaranteed. It's more sporadic in the way these are trying to kind of pop up and produce what they're producing there. Checking our True Shield Roofing hail swath and what they have kicked out. And again, not as much in the way of hail at this time, and certainly nothing where we're getting up there into the darker purples. So that means a fairly significant improvement in the hail category of late, and hopefully something that continues here going forward. So I'm going to check the chat again with what you guys have been sharing with us, and appreciate Lapel's Cleaners and all of the different sponsors we have here on Mississippi Live that you kind of see pop up, like True Shield Roofing that sponsors this graphic, or Mama Justice that sponsors our Doppler radar. Without these folks stepping up, we would not be able to provide this service, like Lee's Storm Shelters there that sponsors the storm shelter list that we have on our webpage there. And Little's Jewelers that runs commercials and sponsors our weather here. Please, if you have the opportunity to choose somebody to support, be willing to support the different folks that support us here on Mississippi Live. It's how we continue doing this. Mitchell Cunningham and Bowling, and just so many more that have stepped to the front here to kind of be a part of what we're doing. Now I see some pictures there that Caleb has. I'm looking at some of those new pictures coming in. Might be just a dark cloud sort of pictures, but that one looks interesting. Rainbow it is, right?
There we go.
Love to see some rainbow shots. That means typically when we start getting more rainbow shots, we've turned the corner in our coverage somewhat.
Yes. No, it's always a good sign when we can start seeing more rainbow pictures come back in our reports here with Mississippi Live. So definitely exciting to see. We had 2 shots come in, but a nice contrast. It almost looks like the rainbow kind of splits the darker clouds to the right and a little bit lighter to the left. So a neat shot out there. And this was actually sent in, oops, clicked the wrong button. This was sent in by Taylor out there in Vardaman off of Highway 341. So starting to see some of those rainbows come in, and another kind of tall looking cloud out there in the distance, maybe looking at a distant thunderstorm. This is Big Thunder Cloud. This is perspective from Iuka, Mississippi. So this was sent in at around 638 by Grayson. So they might be taking a look at kind of one of those taller thunderstorms out there in the distance with that vertical development. But I always enjoy getting some rainbow and cloud pictures, and looks like those hail pictures are really starting to slow on down.
That's what we like to see. Appreciate that, Caleb. Yeah, this is a shot again, one of those cloud pictures in its own way down in the Aberdeen area. Our camera down there with North Mississippi Storm Chasers. Again, the corpuscular rays. Actually, this would be anti-corpuscular rays because you can see the shadows there as well. So when you see the rays of light, it's corpuscular rays. You see the shadows, that's the anti. Either way, looking back toward those thunderstorms back out toward the west, as you kind of have the leftover sort of convective debris, higher level clouds there as well. Storms have stayed well to the west there of folks in the Aberdeen area, as well as all of Monroe County largely at this point. It's very similar shot from West Point on our FastNet camera there, looking back toward the west. We'll go to Adaton as well. You know, part of western Oktibbeha County, I think, clipped there with our most recent severe thunderstorm warning. Maybe it's might be right on the Choctaw line, looking back into those storms that direction. In Choctaw County, down in Ackerman, kind of closer to it, but you see the warning, if I step out of the way here for a moment, north of town where that warning shows up the most significant, but there's not really any issues there in Choctaw County. Let's go ahead and swing this camera around, make sure we're looking kind of northwest. We're looking in a direction we should be sort of looking into it there. Not really seeing a whole lot. That tells you kind of how removed the storm is from where they are at there. And go west to Greenwood, where we previously have had a severe thunderstorm warning there in effect. Looking out just kind of the leftover stuff. I think they're going to allow this warning to expire. 6:45 is its expiration time, 2-3 minutes from now. In fact, if we kind of check that on the wider shot of Mama Justice Doppler, there's not even really any rain in that. So that warning will expire on time. I'm just not super convinced we have damaging weather outside of maybe something very, very isolated. And that's the thing. This warning is very much needle in a haystack as far as severe weather is concerned. And that's why your reports are so helpful to us. It gives us an idea of, you know, kind of what you were seeing there. I see Adaton mentioned there a moment ago. You know, in Adaton, you're still fine. You know, you're right, there? And so you're still fine on where you're at with this. So no real issues for you there in the Adaton community. It's really now, I would say, our heaviest spots. Back out here, probably Montgomery County. It's been Webster County a large portion of the last few hours here. Now you're the Eskridge community on 51. And then they're just between 51 and the interstate there in Winona, one of the other heavier spots where it's somewhat stronger there as well. But man, not as many folks commenting in the chat. As that slows down, that's typically a sign that storms are producing less and less strong and severe weather at this point in time. So maybe a little bit of an improvement there. Hopefully that would be a nice sign. Let's check our True Shield roofing hail swath. Does not show up with significant hail at this point. Look at our echo tops. This is one of those things I typically show more. We haven't really shown it a lot today. This kind of gives us an idea on how tall storms are. And 50,000 feet has been enough to sometimes kick out 40, maybe 50 mile per hour wind gusts. When it gets 55 or 60,000 feet, colors there, of course, the top start changing, and that's when the numbers get a little bit more significant. I see Caleb continuing to look through the various pictures that you guys have sent in. Some of those look like they could potentially be new pictures, and certainly some that I haven't seen, whether I've been not paying attention because I've been doing other stuff or not, is a different story. But yeah, where's that one at?
I will say that these are new pictures being sent in, but I believe that they occurred earlier because we're still talking about the friendship community out there in Ecru. This is going to be for all three pictures I'm about to show you. This was some wind damage. You can see some of those limbs kind of snapped, fallen. Looks to be maybe a tent that continued to blow through somebody's backyard, but they reported wind damage out there in the friendship community out there in Ecru. That was submitted by Brandy. This is also another picture sent in by Brandy of that hail that fell earlier today, kind of meeting that quarter size and even larger. Honestly, it looks to be almost an inch, if not just around an inch. So still seeing some of that hail from out there earlier. And then this was another picture out there in the Ecru kind of friendship community region. So I don't believe that this is still currently ongoing. I just think these people are still submitting reports on what they saw earlier as those storms continue to kind of slowly decline, but still kind of getting more and more of those reports and what all occurred on today, whether that was hail or even that wind related threat that a few of us have definitely been accustomed to, not only the past few days, but definitely throughout North Mississippi today, especially for you guys out there in Pontotoc County. So I'm going to continue to keep my eyes on that. But now we're starting to get some rainbow pictures, more cloud pictures. The hail is starting to slow on down, but I think people are kind of catching up and starting to send in some of those reports throughout the next few minutes. That way we can continue to kind of see what these storms were capable of earlier and what they did end up producing as far as damage-wise as they move on out of our area. So we're going to continue to keep close eyes on that as it continues refreshing so we can see more and more pictures, but hoping to keep it more rainbow related and hopefully not many more damage pictures will be sent in.
That would certainly be the hope. And again, iOS, Android devices, share those with us. There's a place in there to submit video as well as submit your weather pictures. Weather pictures are able to kind of triangulate where you're at a little better, so that helps out. And the Weather Service can see those directly. And then immediately, I'll be honest, the way in which those weather pictures help you out, if you're like, well, what does it mean for me other than to kind of us show it, is if it becomes an official storm report, when it becomes time for you to do insurance stuff, it's like, oh, well, look at this. Like, I can correlate it back to this storm report that the Weather Service had there. And then it makes it a lot easier for your insurance to go, oh, okay. And it's not that insurance isn't going to do that either way, but we all know that sometimes it can be a struggle. And so that's one way to make that struggle a little bit less struggly.
Of course, got to make a bad day a little bit less bad. So
any way we can do that. And I always use that phrase for the hail.
Yep.
And we've had in a minute, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to talk to Emily about what she has coming up, Mississippi Live News tonight at 9 and 10 o'clock. But then I want to come back and see who you think so far would be most likely to be our True Shield hail winder. So we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. Okay.
I can do that.
Okay. Appreciate that. As we bring Emily back in here for a moment, again, weather is news. We've done a lot of that this evening, but what kind of news do you have for us coming up at 9 and 10?
Weather is weather and news is news. Coming up a little bit later on tonight, a downtown daycare in Tupelo. Planning committee approved it, but a few people aren't real thrilled with the idea of having a daycare in downtown Tupelo, so we will talk about that. Also, a new courthouse in Itawamba County. They have some renderings of what it could look like and a little bit more of the plan in place for that. And also, Sean Tyndall making a stop in Tupelo today. We talked about that at 5. If you did miss our 5 o'clock broadcast, we'll be posting that to social media.
Okay, looking forward to that again. Mississippi Live News tonight at 9 and 10 o'clock. And a reminder, we do news in the morning as well. Nagy, of course, has updates related to everything weather-related tomorrow morning, bright and early once again, starting off at 6:30, 7:30 a.m. unless those overnight storms become more of an issue there. There's 2 reasons I'm doing this right now. I'm trying to adjust down the volume on that, but apparently that's not going to work, so I might have to adjust the volume on a different one here. Give me a moment. I thought maybe I would capture that, but it looks like it is not. Give me a moment. I apologize. We're going to need, if you can notice, our lip sync has gotten a little bit farther off on this. We're going to need to reboot some stuff here in a minute. So I think we might take a brief break before we kind of come back on for just a little bit more. Give me just a moment to, come on. Well, I'll figure out this audio issue with Maggie's stuff here in a minute. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back. Again, 9 to 10 o'clock, we've talked a little bit about that.